Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 151 of Birds vs. Boys. Kmess and Aidan here, and we have a ton to talk about and not a lot of time to talk about it. But before we get into all that, if you have not checked out yet, head to our YouTube channel. If you are listening or if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, thank you. Click back and watch our mock draft war room where we do a complete first round mock draft. We pick for every single team in the first round. No AI, no computers, just me and Aidan and our big brains. You're not going to want to miss that. And we will continue these mock drafts not only for the Cowboys and the Eagles for the entire first round as we get closer and closer to the draft in Kansas City in April. Aidan, how are you?
I've been better. I feel like one of those old guys who stares at the storm clouds coming in and realizes that it's probably not going to be good when the storm makes impact. But at least the mock draft was a nice escape from reality that every team can improve, including our two teams. And it was nice to think about guys that we're adding instead of guys that we're subtracting from our team.
So is that kind of a segue into where you want to begin today's episode?
I guess that's probably the best way to do it. We have one show where we get to add guys and one show where we have to talk about subtracting guys. The news on the street, Cj Garnder Johnson, not franchise tagged, presumably gone. Javon Hargrave, presumably gone. James Bradbury, presumably gone. Not the best week for the Eagles in terms of headlines.
And it seems as though teams are already keying in on these guys. Like the Browns apparently have their sights set on CJC, and they also want to add a big-time defensive lineman. So who knows? Maybe both of them ship off to Cleveland together.
We talked about this off air. There are teams that are interested heavily in Marcus Epps. Yes, forget Cj Garnder Johnson. We can't even keep our second best safety. There's a lot of heat around the guys that we have on our team. 8 of the top snap getters on defense are free agents for the Eagles. So you knew that you couldn't keep everybody. Yep. But at the same time, I'd like to keep at least a little something. We might not have the whole cupcakes or the whole cake, but I'd like to keep a few cupcakes or some cookies.
Hey, you got 2 first-round picks. That's a cupcake and a cookie.
That is so that's the deal. And I'm kind of curious what the Eagles' strategy is, because for a long time they thought the extension with Cj Garnder Johnson was going to happen. Set aside the franchise tag. We're talking multi-years. And now I'm like, is the strategy just to load up on compensatory picks and just, be like a team like the Bears who are stockpiled with picks and do it that way? And, spend your money on the offense, spend your money on the Hurts extension, and then try to build the defense through the draft and through comp picks and stuff like that. I don't know if that's the smartest strategy. Drafts are crapshoots. The more picks you have, the more likely you are to succeed. But at the same time, that is a tough strategy to go down.
It's almost sort of what the Cowboys have been doing, right? I mean, they pride themselves on their drafts. They don't dig deep into free agency in the front end. They do it in the back end. They let guys walk when they feel like it's time, Lyle Collins and so on and so forth. And then they get the comp picks. And it's always nice when you get that, that comes out, and you see the tweets, you're like, "Ooh, we got two comp picks in the 4th round and the 5th round. This is great." But at the same time, 2, 3, 4 years down the road, how many of those comp picks are having legitimate impact on your team?
That's the thing. So it's like, it's a gamble, right? It's the mystery box scene in Family Guy where you're like, we could draft a safety. Yep. It could be anything. It could even be a Cj Garnder Johnson.
Yep.
That's the gamble that you play with.
That's like, I'm gonna make myself old here. It's like watching Wheel of Fortune, and they have the wheel and it lands on this thing that's like, either you get 1,000 or you could pick up the thing and it could be 10,000 or bankrupt. And everybody's like, they're like, "What do you do?" And it's always bankrupt. They're like, "Oh, I'm going to do it." I'm like, "No, just take the 1,000 and keep playing." Like it's a bankrupt.
Yeah. It's the toughest thing in the world to do is walk away from the table. Yeah. You just bought that house. I would take every 1,000 that you can get.
Yeah, please. I'll take every penny that I will get.
Yeah. Forget the 1,000. I'll take 100.
I have not gotten my haircut in a month, ladies and gentlemen. That's why it looks like this. I usually get my haircut every 2 weeks because my wife will not let me because we're in the midst of buying a home.
We're conservative.
So Venmo. If anyone wants to Venmo some money for haircuts.
Yes. We're financially, we're cutting back. The Eagles and Kevin's household.
Yep.
So just the free agency thing with the Eagles. So I was on a podcast and they asked me, they're like, "Oh, who would you like most likely like to bring back?" And I'm like, "It's not Cj Garnder Johnson. I'd rather bring back Javon Hargrave." And I think the Eagles, who invest so heavily in the defensive line, would like to bring him back too. So if there is, as much as it would suck to lose Gardner Johnson, I think Javon Hargrave is the guy that I want back the most. And it is the position that the Eagles care about the most. They signed him in free agency. They've given huge extensions to Fletcher Cox. They gave an extension to Josh Sweat. They brought back Brandon Graham. They might do that again. They will spend the money there.
Yep.
So I hope that they're able to do it with Hargrave. And it always felt like it was going to be one or the other between those two guys. And they were going to choose Gardner Johnson. Now they can lose both. This is the Wheel of Fortune situation that you just talked about. They might just go bankrupt. They're not getting 1,000. They're not getting 10,000. They're getting 0.
And not only do well, not me, I hope they all leave, but not only if I'm the Eagles, would I want Hargraves there for his production on the field, putting him next to a guy like Jordan Davis, putting his locker next to a guy like Jordan Davis to continue to teach him how to be a pro, how to take care of your body, how to approach games. I mean, we're expecting a big leap, right? From year 1 to year 2 for a guy like Jordan Davis. Keeping a guy like Hargraves with him, I think, is a huge impact for that ability to have that jump on the field for Jordan Davis.
Great point. And we just brought up 8 of the top 11 guys, snap-wise, are free agents. That shouldn't matter as much because Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis should be getting meaningful, impactful snaps this year. Like this, ignore the salary cap. This should have always been the plan that those two guys were going to be meaningful, impactful starters for your team. And they pretty much got a redshirt year because the team was so loaded, but you drafted them for a reason and they should be playing now. So we talk about, oh, where's the money going to come from? Who can they resign? It's like, well, some of the solutions are presumably already on the team. And if they're not, there's a way bigger issue than, oh, how much money do you have in the salary cap after a Hurts extension? Like that is the biggest thing to me, is like, if Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean aren't playing by this year and playing well, bigger problems, way bigger problems that you can't fix by re-signing Cj Garnder Johnson.
Yep. Agreed. And that's why I would want to keep a guy like Hargraves with him as, I don't want to say a backup plan, but I would, out of those 3, you would hope to keep one, right? And I think Bradbury, we always presume, was going to walk. I mean, the 1 year, $8 million. I mean, do you think CJ? I think CJ always wanted to stay in Philly. I think Philly wants him, but maybe, he played so well. He was the interception leader for a long time. I mean, he may have just talked to his agent, been like, "Yo, we were just at the combine. I was at the Steak and Shake at 3:30 talking to all these teams, and this is now the number you can get on the open market." And he's like, "Okay, I gotta go."
It's the scene in Parks and Rec where Ron writes down how much he has in gold and hands it to the lawyer, and he's like, "That's a quarter of your earnings." Like, what? Like that's Cj Garnder Johnson. He's like, he had an idea of what a long-term extension would cost, and then his agent was like, "That's actually what we could get." So I think before the year there was a number that they thought they could re-sign him to for multi-years. Now, not so much. You're right. I think he outplayed an extension that he already deserved, which credit and kudos to him is pretty hard to do, to be like, you already deserve an extension. Now you deserve an even bigger extension.
He had his Vince, right? His friend already made his hype video to tweet, and it was done. It was ready. It was locked in. And then he saw those numbers. He's like, "Yo, I need you to remake that video with the sad song." Because
he already had the highlights. He was like, "Wait, don't use Just Wanna Rock by Uzi. We need something real sad now. We got to change it up. We got a much bigger number. We got to tell these guys to kick rocks."
It's all up, Philly.
It's all up. See ya. I'm getting paid.
Bye.
I'm getting so much money.
I mean, how do you can't say no to that, especially if you're a guy like CJ, right? And I think also, right, for somebody like him who had a phenomenal year, also had injury issues this year too. So that's also a wake up call. Like, okay, if I have my opportunity to make my money right now, I don't know how long that's going to last. I mean, everybody always says you want to go into free agency playing your best, right? And I mean, nobody can fault him, no matter where he goes. If it's the Browns, if it's anywhere, to make
the tweet that I sent you guys and the one that hurt was a picture of Jimmy Butler in a Sixers uniform and it said Cj Garnder Johnson, and I was just like, damn, that really hurts. Two guys who made a huge impact in just a year's time, less than a year's time, and will forever be like legendary in Philly and 0 titles to show for it. Damn, that sucks. But that's like how bad teams stay bad. Like if the Browns offer him a number that the Eagles can't match, because they're trying to chase, because they can't build through the draft. They gave all their picks away, and now they're trying to throw money at the problems that they need to fix. That's how you stay the Browns. So, like, if the Eagles don't do this, you have to start to say to yourself, like, there's a reason that you're a good team, and it's not by throwing money at problems.
It's not Chiefs by tagging him and giving him $14 million.
Correct. Yes. The Chiefs have to make difficult decisions, like letting Frank Clark go. They traded Tyreek Hill. They still won a Super Bowl.
Matthew walk.
Yeah. And another one. That's another one. I totally forgot about that one. Mm-hmm. And they still played in the Super Bowl.
And won.
And they won because they build their team well and they don't throw money at their problems. Mm-hmm. And that's what the Eagles are going to have to do. And then just one last thing on this, because I know with anything on the internet, there is freak out because there are the reports that these guys aren't coming back. I'm not freaking out at all. Free agency hasn't started yet. It could start, and we could have a 4-year deal locked in for Gardner.
Literally.
Johnson. Yeah. And you think about free agency last year, for the longest time, they signed one guy. I don't know if you remember who it was.
Was it Hassan?
It was. Yeah. So they signed Hassan Reddick. That was their only move. And by the time the season rolled around, they had A.J. Brown, Cj Garnder Johnson, Kazir White, James Bradbury, and just for shits and giggles, added Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh.
Yep.
All well after free agency had begun. So
and Dicker the kicker for a little bit.
What's that?
And they had Dicker the kicker for a little bit.
Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah. I just trust him with my life. Every acquisition they made, they hit on. So I'm not exactly freaking out.
No, and and again, we're also draft guys. You have 2 first-round picks.
Yep.
There's no reason to freak out right now. None.
Yeah, which they can parlay into other players or picks. And this is going to be a great free agency for everybody.
Yep.
I think teams it's kind of like the market in general. It's like you're hesitant to spend money because you realize how costly everything is.
Yep.
And a lot of teams are like, I don't want to pay this player anymore, which opens up a huge free agency pool. And I don't know what the numbers are going to look like. It's going to be weird. But there's going to be a lot of guys out there.
So many of these guys be those cap casualties, right? Like Adam Thielen might be cut. There's talks that Nick Chubb could be a cap casualty. Derrick Henry. The
entire Rams team, they got rid of Bobby Wagner. They're trying to trade Matthew Stafford. My bold pick that I told you last night, I bet they try to trade Cooper Kupp to receive some of those picks. They're trying to move on from Jalen Ramsey. The Bucs are doing the same thing. Levante David's not going to be back. Like they're going to lose both their safeties. So if you have issues, you could fix them in free agency. There's going to be guys there.
If Stafford moves after the draft, like if one of those teams like the Raiders or the Colts don't get the quarterback that they want, like if let's say like we think Bryce Young, right, and make sure you watch our mock draft, CJ Stroud, Richardson, and Will Levis are the top 4 quarterbacks, right? And we think like the Raiders have a chance at 7 to get Will Levis. Well, let's say those top 3 go, and then somebody jumps up to like 5 to take Will Levis. You never know. A team like the Raiders or even the Colts, if the top 3 guys go 1, 2, 3, and the Colts are sitting there like, we don't love Will Levis, and they take Jalen Carter, they may be in the talks to get a guy like Stafford after. So, it's unbelievable the amount of names: DeAndre Hopkins, Stephon Diggs, and we'll talk all about this when we talk Cowboys. But the names, and some of them
big names,
and I think some of them are. I think that's mainly all they have left is their name.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's more this year than I can remember in a while.
I think it's a reluctant time to spend money on veterans as the gap between NFL ready players and college players closes, narrows, where you have guys who can produce right away coming from football factories like Alabama and Georgia, and they cost less. Yep. Perfect example is the running back positions. Like, yeah, I understand not wanting to give Derrick Henry an $11 million when he has so much tread on the tires, and you could just get Bijan Robinson. You could trade back from 11 and get him in the 20s.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
It's just the name of the game.
And you're right too with this NFL ready players. Remember years ago when it was like wide receiver takes so long to acclimate, cornerback takes so long to acclimate. Now you look at these guys like Devontae Smith, his impact his rookie year, right? The cornerback, Sauce Gardner this year. Basically every cornerback for the Chiefs was a rookie in the Super Bowl this year.
Every receiver from Ohio State just comes in and sets a record. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, like they set their team's individual receiving rookie record. They're going to have Jackson Smith and Jigba's going to do it again. Come to Dallas.
I would take him in a second, but
there you go.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see. I'm also very interested to see how those first 1, 2, 3 days of free agency go. Is it going to be a complete flurry, or are teams going to kind of let the markets come to them a little bit more?
I think it'll have the NBA effect where Lamar is out there, Aaron Rodgers is out there. Everyone has to find their quarterback, and when the quarterback musical chairs ends, that's when the other players get signed. I remember, like, for the one free agency, like you always have to have the Kevin Durant's of the world decide, and then everybody else comes in. And I feel like that's how it's going to go in free agency this year, but we'll see.
I can't wait till Cooper Rush is the starting quarterback for the Raiders, throwing to Devontae Adams.
Jimmy G, man.
I don't know if you heard the David Carr. He was talking about the Raiders and Derek and how Brady used to just bully McDaniels and been like, no, this is what we're going to do. And now McDaniels thinks he's like this smart guy. And basically all he wants is a judge machine. Like, I'm the smart guy. I know it's coming. Just, I want you to aim the judge machine here or here or here. And that's the kind of guy. He just wants a quarterback that's going to divvy the ball where he wants it. And that's it. And I think Jimmy G's that type of guy. He comes from that Shanahan kind of aspect.
That's literally what he had to do in San Francisco. So it makes sense.
Yep.
All right. A lot of Eagles talk, free agents leaving. I know it impacts both of our teams. So let's flip over to the Cowboys. What do you got for me today? Tony Pollard, franchise tags. We're running the ball.
You're talking about everybody leaving. I mean, what I'm seeing on Twitter is everybody's coming to Dallas, right? Here we go. It's the offseason. I mean, we're getting Jalen Ramsey, Bobby Wagner, Stephon Diggs, and DeAndre Hopkins. They're all coming. Everybody's coming.
Listen, you guys are made a killing in 2016.
Well, if you go back to that draft, right? 4th overall pick, Ezekiel Elliott. They could have taken Jalen Ramsey there and then taken Derrick Henry in the 2nd round and had Jalen Ramsey and Derrick Henry.
I have a tweet that I remember vividly that I put out right before the Cowboys picked. We didn't even know each other at this time. I was like, the Cowboys would be so dumb to pass up Jalen Ramsey for a running back. And then immediately after the pick, I just quoted myself with a million crying, laughing faces because I was just like, this is so predictable. But yeah, you could have just had Jalen Ramsey, Trayvon Diggs. Any running back could have filled in for Zeke the past few years. It happens. Would
have been Derrick Henry in the 2nd round.
Yep.
But now it's, the shiny new / old toy, that you and I syndrome that we always talk about. And wide receiver has been such a glaring need, right, for this team. Jerry Jones has thrown the wide receivers under the bus for some of the ailments that Dak has. And, you can't throw out there Noah Brown as your 2. Michael Gallup obviously was not himself this past year coming off the ACL. So we'll see what he does 2 years removed. But they're going to address wide receiver. Now, you mentioned Jackson Smith and Jigba. Beyond him and a couple others, like this wide receiver draft core is not as strong as we've seen in recent years. I think actually some of the best playmakers are the tight ends up high. We've talked about Michael Mayer and the kid from Utah, Kincaid. I think that's going to be an option at 26. So I do think the Cowboys are going to try and, I don't want to say make a splash, but address. I don't know if it's going to be a guy like Braxton Berrios that just got cut from the Jets, or are they going to go in and actually get a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, ship out of 2, ship out of 3 to bring a 30-year-old in and be wide receiver 2? Or do they just go out? They already flirted with him with Odell, bring him in, or is the Stephon Diggs thing really a thing? And I don't know if you saw this. People are legitimately talking about this on TV and on the internet and on the radio that Stephon Diggs now just followed the Cowboys on Instagram, but Trayvon Diggs doesn't follow the Cowboys on Instagram.
Maybe they're getting traded for each other.
Traded for each other.
Yeah, that's how that works. Got to follow the Instagram breadcrumbs.
I do think they're going to do something with one of these wide receivers. I would love them, if they could trade a 2 or a 3 for Hopkins, I'm in. There's no more guaranteed money in his deal. They'll restructure it. And then, go out and sign a guy like Bobby Wagner to a 2-year deal that's worth, $20 million guaranteed. You can cut him after the second year. I mean, there's ways to bring free agents to this team that are not going to break the bank. That's not going to be like signing a Lamar Jackson, but that will legitimately help this team get to the next level. And then you bank on your draft, which for the most part, the team is pretty good in the draft. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it's everywhere on Twitter right now. I mean, everywhere.
I think the most realistic expectation is DeAndre Hopkins. I know he's 30, but it's not exactly like he hit a wall. He had the 6-game suspension, and then Kyler tore his ACL. He was catching balls from, no offense. I love Trace McSorley, but Trace McSorley. And I think didn't he get hurt?
Yeah. Colt McCoy got hurt. Everybody got hurt. So it's just like a whole wash of a season. I don't necessarily think he's washed himself. So like you said, it's kind of low risk in the sense that there's no guaranteed money left and you're not tied in long term. But at the same time, there's probably still production value from him. And also, attention all these players that don't want to use agents and use their moms as agents. DeAndre Hopkins using one. It being one, this is how you end up with a deal with 2 years left and no guaranteed money in it.
Yeah.
You represent yourself.
Yeah. Although I will say, if my mom was my agent, she would definitely get me a great deal.
True.
She should be the agent for this podcast. I think we'd be blown up right now.
Joyce, you're signed up. Okay.
You're signed.
Yeah.
We can offer you stateside seltzers.
Yep.
And Delco steaks.
And if you ever come towards Doylestown or Furlong, I have a guest room for you to stay in for free.
There we go.
With your own bathroom. It's called the Princess Suite.
There. All right.
There we go.
Deal.
You're in. And then a couple other news. Obviously, Dak may be getting restructured. Way to free up some money. Tyron Smith now is talks that they're thinking about keeping him, restructuring his deal, which I'm okay with. If he wants to be the swing tackle, Terrence Steele is coming off the ACL. He could start at right tackle. I'm okay if he's not like your bona fide has to be your left tackle day 1 through week 17. That's not happening. If he wants to be a pro, be the swing tackle, stay with the Cowboys, I'm good with it. One rumbling that's kind of worrisome to me is Zach Martin, right? No one knows. There's a chance he could retire before the season starts. There's a chance that he's talked about. He wants to see how his body feels. It could be 1 year. It could be 3 years. No one really knows right now.
That's what I worry about.
That's like a glaring, oh shit.
Yeah. Because that's been the one anchor on that offensive line. You lose him and it's like, oh boy, we're really struggling now.
But I think this is why the Cowboys also are like thinking about through the draft. It could be a guard or a tackle at 26 as well, depending on who's there for contingency plans. Because when other guys have just like retired, they're like, oh, we didn't have a plan for that. So I think offensive line is also going to be something that they bolster. And then just to tie a bow on it before we get out of here is you mentioned Tony Pollard getting tagged. He's going to make $10.8 million this year. Tagging your running back is just insane. He's coming off the leg injury. I think I told you all these deals the Cowboys have done, right? They signed Dak to the extension right after he broke his leg. They signed Gallup to a new contract right after he tore his ACL. They just tagged Steele right after an ACL. Now they tagged Pollard right after he broke his leg. So there's something with them and enjoying leg injuries. But it just makes too much sense here. If you cut Ezekiel Elliott, you save $10.8 million.
Yep.
Literally. And you're paying Pollard $10.8 million. It has to be the trade-off.
It's a perfect Tetris piece.
Has to be.
It's a perfect. They fit very well together.
But Jerry and Steven run this goddamn team like a family-owned country club. So who knows what they're going to do? They just want to keep everybody around and come on to the dinner table. Yeah, it's so who knows? If you told me Ezekiel Elliott was on this team next year, I wouldn't be like, you are insane. I would say you are insane for wanting that, but you're not insane for thinking that that's possible.
It would have to be for a restructured deal where he got
it would have to be that he's paying the team to play.
Pretty much. It would have to be very unfavorable to him.
Yes.
But at the same time, I don't know where he's going that it becomes favorable. Like, why would you offer him more than $2 million?
He's a fullback.
Yeah.
That from time to time can fill in at center, apparently.
He can, not effectively. Nope. But you can try.
Effectively. I just said can fill in. But yeah, I mean, I'm super excited for you and I both love the offseason, right? We are, I think 49 days right now as we record away from the draft, which is crazy.
Oh, we're going to have so many more mock drafts before that happens. You know how many people I can talk myself into in 47 days? I'll have half the first round.
Oh my God. And I mean, free agency starts next week while you're in Florida. So that's just unbelievable. And it's 2 days before St. Paddy's Day. So, I mean, maybe I'll be having a couple Guinnesses celebrating a player or two. Probably not.
I hope so. Listen, this could go very well in Florida, spring training. Albeit last time I was there, or one of the last times I was there, the Eagles traded LaShawn McCoy to the Bills, so it didn't work out well last time. Start a free agency. We'll get some good deals. I'll sip some Coronas on the beach, come home. I'm seeing Bruce Springsteen on St. Paddy's Day, so I'm very excited about this. So this could shape up to be a great week, or it could shape up where 8 of our defensive starters are on another team by the time I'm at that concert.
But it's still a great week for you because you're in Florida.
Yeah, this is a win-win because I either get all these guys that I want in free agency, or I lose them all and I can just fall back on the fact that I'm on vacation and worry about it.
Drink more.
Yeah, exactly.
It's no big deal. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I mean, this podcast doesn't talk about I don't even remember his name now. The Deshaun quarterback. Watson. Oh my God. Deshaun. We don't talk about Deshaun Watson just in the same way we don't talk about Aaron Rodgers. So done with it. I don't care. You're in your cave. If you want to play for the Jets, congratulations. Go play for the Jets.
Yeah, they would not. I would not care. I will say, if they don't get Aaron Rodgers, why don't they just put themselves in the Matthew Stafford sweepstakes, which is also a commendable quarterback, but like doesn't go on McAfee and spew like weird theories all the time.
Can you imagine? I could see the Commanders getting into the Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, that would suck though.
Yeah. If his arm can still throw the ball.
Yeah.
If I'm him at this point, I'm like, you know what? I got my ring. I played in LA.
See ya. Done. Yeah. Unless his contract cap hit is worth it to stay.
Like if they're like, all right, we're shipping you to Washington, I'd be like, bye.
Didn't his wife almost die too? Didn't she have a tumor?
Tumor, I think.
Yeah, that's a classic. Like, yeah, I'm done. I made a ton of money. I'm in AT&T commercials. I got a ring. I made it out of Detroit alive.
Yep. Yeah. You're not sending me to Washington.
You're not sending me to Washington. Yeah. I'd be like, all right, well, we had a good run.
Yep, we did. And so do we. We have a good run continuing to go on. So let everybody know, Aidan, one more time how they can watch, how they can listen, and most importantly, mock, and more.
Birds vs. Boys Pod on YouTube. Like Kevin mentioned, we're doing a bunch of mock drafts. I really like the style that we did this week where we were drafting for every team in the first round. We'll do player breakdowns as well on that YouTube page. Apple, Spotify, we'll have this podcast on there. Birds vs. Boys Pod on Twitter. A lot of content coming out there. Sometimes I forget to switch accounts, so just bear with me. And then Birds vs. Boys Pod on TikTok as well, where you can see all of the brainchild ideas that I have come to life after I get them from my brain to Vince's computer, where he forms them perfectly. So anywhere you can find us, Birds vs. Boys Pod, we will be there with a ton of upcoming content.
Boom. Enjoy free agency. I will be back next week. Aidan will be in Florida, and we might also have a special guest interview popping through in the next couple days. Enjoy it. Tell your friends, tell your family. Birds vs. Boys is not only a podcast for Birds fans or for Boys fans. It's all NFL fans, especially in the offseason. If you like draft content, if you like free agency content, this is the spot you want to be.